I believe we are now going live on Zoom.
And live on YouTube.
And live on YouTube. Are you seeing live?
Hold on.
I'm seeing live. Okay, we're live. Here we go.
Well, that was weird. I accidentally clicked on YouTube and then everything was echoing. So it was like, what's happening? I didn't know if you were asking me the question. You already asked me the question. I was so much going on. Wow. Okay.
Okay, cue the music. Here we go. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Joel Elston and Alex King. Today is Thursday, July the 25th, 2019. It is 8 a.m. in New York and 5 a.m. in Los Angeles. That's 1 p.m. in London and 9 p.m. Tokyo, 10 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm happy that our good friend Joel is back after a bit of I guess we can't really call it a vacation. We'll call it an extended dealing with other issues thing so he can come back. How about that?
Yeah, in my line of work, I often, most of it's really good, but occasionally I have to be involved in some of the processes that with the legal system with my clients. And, you never know when you get that subpoena one day and it says you need to be there at 8 o'clock. They don't really they don't listen to the fact, I have a radio show to do. They don't listen to that.
Funny how they behave like that.
Right?
It's but we're glad.
So that's good to be back.
Well, we're glad that you're able to get that cleared up so you could be back. And that's the best part.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome back. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
And we actually have two different topics to discuss today. The one I wanted to bring up is one that you actually, I see people post on it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're dealing with a family member, particularly somebody you're really close to, a spouse or something like that, or girlfriend or boyfriend, or somebody who you are intricately interwoven with. And that person is struggling in a big way. And the nature of what they're struggling about directly impacts your life in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
So that really everything that they go through can have an impact on basics, like, where you're going to live, whether you're going to have food on the table, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough situation to deal with. And yet it's probably the most important one to learn how to handle, because until we get ourselves into the right mindset, we can't really help them in any way.
Right.
And yet we're faced with, we got all these facts and experiences coming at us that are outside of us, that are outside of our internal dialogue. Well, how do I deal with that? How do I go inside when I have to deal with all this outside stuff? It's a balance, and it's a balance to have. And I imagine that's one of the more common types of conversational topics you have, Joel, with your clients. But what do you do? How do you handle stuff like that? How do you get yourself back on track in order so you can really be in a place to help the other person?
Well, and that's probably the I think in life in general, that's what people deal with the most when these scenarios come up. And there's a million different versions of it, but the idea that that in everything that we do in a day, and the basis of where we go to is you have two. I want to oversimplify part of it is things that are in your direct control and things that are not.
Mm-hmm.
And when you separate the things that are in your direct control versus the things that are not, then you can, at least that's step one. It's almost okay. What's in my control? The idea that there's 90% of what happens in life is totally out of our control. And it can either feel like it's happening to us or happening for us. And it's hard to get there when you're dealing with, especially a loved one. And then when you add the compounded, everything's entwined. So your reality is hard to make a reality that's not negative, because it's there. And so that's where you vibrate. But for simplistic explanation, the left side of your brain is where historical facts are stored. It's where anxiety takes place. It's where the fear of the future. It's where narratives take place. And so we automatically flip to that left side of the brain and look at, okay, this is happening, so I'm going to be homeless, or this is happening and I'm going to lose everything. This is happening and I'm the unknown. So the fear-based existence happens. And so that's what that's the part of the law of attraction that goes out there. You can't help it. The idea that we somehow can control every single thought in a day it's not realistic. You don't control your heartbeat. The thoughts are there. What you can do is work on how you feel about those thoughts. And that's where the left-right brain thing comes into play. So when you realize that fear takes place in the left side of the brain, it's always scanning, it's always looking for what's going to go wrong, it's protective, and it looks at everything that has happened to this date in the past, and it's going to say, see, here's evidence that this is going to go wrong. Now, the right side of the brain,
right?
If we could ever get to the right side of the brain, and there's ways we can do that, but the right side of the brain, or the correct side of the brain in this case as well, is where you can say, wait a minute, I've had ungodly events happen throughout my life, and I am 100% successful in surviving those. In fact, when I allowed those events to take me where they were taking me, I ended up in a better place. For me, the idea that, when they shut the jail door on you, and after that really exciting body cavity search, once you get past that, and you realize, okay, there's my life's over. Everything's been destroyed. I've lost everything. There's no chance. And I'm living in the left side of the brain. But when I look historically back on that and say, wait a minute, that was the greatest turning point in my life. Now, I don't want to go do that again. However, what an incredible moment where that flipped everything, and I had to go. So when you allow the right side of the brain to say, yes, this is all unknown, and the reality is the fear of what is coming up or potentially coming up is what is driving the anxiety and the fact of all that. We're overthinking it. Now, of course, I'm very aware that's the easy thing to say, and that's sort of the science behind it. But the more you can get to that side of, I am undefeated. In the big scheme, I'm still here. I have survived the unsurvivable. I'm still here. The guaranteed fact is I'm going to survive what's coming up. Now, it might not be fun, and it might not be, but I have to trust if I do it in the right manner, it's going to put me in the place where I need to be. And that's going to be that next step. And so that's where the law of action sort of combines the law of attraction. So instead of looking at it from the perspective of, yes, everything's falling apart, one of my favorite sayings, for things to come together, sometimes they have to fall apart first. Mm-hmm. And so almost preparing for, okay, what's going to happen is going to happen, and it's going to grind. Like I have this is a true story. This couple, in a very similar way that you're describing, 2 or 3 years ago, had just catastrophic events happen. They literally were about to be made homeless. They were made homeless, actually. They were kicked out of their house. Their house was foreclosed on. Things were desperate. And they ended up staying with a relative for a little while, and they were really stuck. And then through a bizarre chain of events too long to describe, that relative actually had some good ideas of just businesses that he's never been able to implement. And they started sort of, once they get out of the desperation state, they lost everything. So it's almost an easier place to deal with because everything was gone. So it's easier. Okay, well, now we can really get busy. Mm-hmm. And things turned around, and that couple is, almost worth $1 million today and have a thriving business. And it came from, it wasn't until they lost everything they were able to gain everything. So when you can muster that courage and that energy to just say, I have to accept what's being dealt me, my response to it will be in my control. My emotions toward it will be in my control. Now, everything I just said is the science behind it, what we should do. I'm not minimalizing how hard that is to do.
Right.
I'm just saying that's how it works. In some ways, well, everything I went through was dictated to me with no negotiation. I didn't have time to, like I said, when the guy shows up to arrest me for my stuff to put me in jail, he didn't say, "Hey, Joel, we got a couple options here. You need to go to jail with us, go for dinner." It was like, we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way, but you're going to jail. And fortunately, we did it the easy way. But it was, I was sort of forced into scenarios that made me accept where things were at. So in some ways, as hard as my path was, it was easier because I didn't have a lot of worry. There's a lot of worry involved, but there wasn't a lot of options in doing this. So, when someone is facing the storm, the point of the storm is to change things. The ocean would be stagnant without storms. It would have no oxygen. Fish wouldn't grow. Things wouldn't happen without storms. Storms are catalysts for growth. Struggle is catalyst for growth. The suffering portion of the struggle is the optional event that has a negative effect toward the law of attraction. So learning to apply the law of attraction, it is the response, the in your control versus the out of your control stuff. That's where the energy gets placed. But it's and when I say that, I have this amazing rear view mirror that I can look back on and say, wow, this happened exactly like I'm saying. I would love to tell you when I was in the middle of these storms, I had this great philosophical view too. I did not. It was not pretty.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I can look back. Now, I will tell you when things happen now, because of that big rear view mirror, I have zero fear. I mean, it's I just like, is this all you got? Really? Come on. But when you're in the middle of, so I do have great empathy, but that's sort of a long explanation for what you're asking about, Walt.
Yeah. And I'll even complicate the matter further. In some cases, when if you're talking about a couple, spouses or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, in some cases where one of the people are struggling, they're struggling in the face of, I'll call it success. I can't think of a better way to say it. The Secret, for instance, talked about it. They talked about how people will be trying to attract something, and just as it's ready to start emerging from the ground, they say, this stuff doesn't work, and it goes away.
Right.
So, when you're dealing with that in a couple situation, and the person who's struggling doesn't see that what's actually going on right now is the dreams are coming true.
Right.
All the things that the person's been looking for are now coming true, but because the person can't handle what's going on with their life, and for whatever reason, they just can't see it. And right. I think it probably happens a lot more than we realize. And it's also frustrating when you're the other person trying to deal with, well, how do I help this person who I really care about so much, who just can't see that the success that they're looking for, the result they're looking for, it's right there. It's there. All they have to do is just take that last step, and it's there.
Well, and their perspective is out of your control. That becomes the hard part. What your question inherent? What can I do? Of that scenario, just doing a basic exercise, let's use that. Of that scenario, let's call it, Sue and Bob. Sue and Bob are married. Similar scenario. Let's say Bob's having the struggle and Sue sees it.
Okay.
What is in Sue's power here? What does Sue have the ability to do? Can Sue go shake Bob and say, "You must see this"?
No.
Well, she could, but I'm not sure. It probably wouldn't work, but she could do it.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. That's a good point. Could she? Yes. That's something Sue could do. Would that actually have the effect Sue's after? Would that, as far as anxiety and stress, could that potentially escalate Bob?
Yes,
it could. Sure. It could actually make the matter worse.
Actually, now that I think about it, Louise actually did something with me a few times. There were a couple of times when I was in a really, really bad space, and she would come up to me and she would just like straddle my chest and grab me by the shirt and say, "Snap out of it." And sometimes it actually got me to laugh. So in those cases, it actually helped. But It could have gone either way.
It could go either way. I've learned a long time ago in dealing with in my relationships, which are a whole another chapter we could talk about one day. Wow. But within those, I've learned some certain things. There's certain things that I just learned in life. Telling a woman to relax when she's hysterical.
Oh my God, that's the worst thing you can do.
Effective. It's not effective. So I had to learn, and a lot of times when people are asking, they claim to be asking for help, or and there's a dynamic that takes place when someone's struggling in a relationship. Let's say Bob and our relationship is struggling, and Sue's trying to help. Sometimes when Bob says, "Here's what I'm feeling," and Sue says, "Okay, clearly Bob needs my help." What Bob is just saying, I'm expressing what I'm feeling. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
And the energy that you have to change sometimes is you are not the solution to Bob's problem. You could be there for support. You could be there to help Bob. You could be there in the sense that in helping means let Bob get to where Bob's going to get. Bob has to. The law of attraction is responding to Bob's stuff, and so when you're running and trying to fix it, then when I'm desperate, when you get stuck on one outcome, when you're looking at it through a left-sided brain, anxiety-filled world, somebody coming up to you and trying to solve it just doesn't work. You have to allow that person to go through it. And now you do that, the part that's in your control is the energy you vibrate of, I love you, I'm here for you, you let me know what you need me to do, but I've got to go do my stuff, my manifesting, I got to do my version of all this as well. But I'm here for you 100% when you get there. But the concept that you're going to be an intervening force against someone else's vibration, that's where we hear this in relationships a lot where, okay, I broke up with a woman of my dreams. She broke up with me, and I'm going to force her. I'm going to manifest her back into my life. It's so important it's like, no, you're not, because you're not going to out manifest her life by pulling her to your life. You're not going to do that.
And by the way, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing that you're not going to be able to do that, because there are actually people who manage to do that, and then they're absolutely miserable.
Of course. Yeah. It's this idea that we get stuck in these scenarios, and when you start wanting because of a lack, or perceived lack, you've limited again the universe to that same scenario. I pointed this out one time, and I was giving a talk, and it was sort of a back and forth thing, and. Okay, imagine a small town. There's 5,000 people in this small town, and there's a small high school with a total of 300 kids in the entire high school. And this senior year, that this boy and girl in the high school, they fall in love and they want to get married as soon as they get out of high school, because they're like, well, he's my soulmate. The universe we're meant together. Okay, you mean out of the 8 billion people on the planet, the 150 girls and the 150 boys in this school that you find? I mean, is that really where it's at, or or is it's what it feels like because your vision is limited. Sort of by your environment, your perspective. So the smaller you allow your world to view, or when you're looking at it through a 300 person lens, I'm sure within the 300 people that was the soulmate. But to understand the concept that there's nobody better on the planet, or there's no other scenario better, is limited by the vision. And when we get stuck into this level of abyss, so to speak, the world's real small, and it gets down to choices that are it's either this or that, and you're like you're saying, I can step back and go, are you kidding? The one thing I had to stop telling people this, because it was perceived so mean when I said it. But when somebody would call and say, "Oh my God, Joe, I got some bad news. I just lost my job," I'm like, "Congratulations."
Yeah, that's not exactly the Dale Carnegie method for winning friends and influencing people.
No, I've been hung up on several times. But inevitably, I've never seen when on the other side of that, I've never seen people that when you allow that to happen, then that gets you to that next level. It's just,
Right.
you know, Walt has witnessed in my life over the last 7 years or however long we've been doing this. You know, I left a career position unexpectedly that I didn't expect to leave. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, all of a sudden propelled into private practice, and I've had several things happen. I've lost my son during that period of time, and there's a lot of things that happened during that time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a lot of life, but I mean, I can ask Walt this question. I mean, I don't view it. I mean, I survived it all. I do it pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Is
mean,
that a question?
it's yeah. I mean, do you see it that way? I mean,
oh, do I see it that way? Oh. Yeah, absolutely. You've come through it with flying colors, I would say.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's my point. I just want you to. The key is what is in our control, and let's put all of our energy toward there. The anxiety of what's not in your control, and how do I get another person to behave a certain way is having the reverse effect in the law of attraction. You're actually reinforcing the other person's anxiety. How does Bob get Sue or Sue get Bob to see this? What does have to happen versus what's in my control? Let me manifest my side of this only.
Right. Yeah.
Hard
And that's it. It is a hard place, but it's also the only place that we can be effective. So it's a good reminder when the tough gets going, it isn't when the going gets tough, it isn't that the tough get going. When the going gets tough, the tough ones are the ones who are willing to say, you know what, that's outside of my control.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's something that I can't do anything about that. What I can do something about is how I feel about it. And that's the reminder. I mean,
that's the reminder.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. And that's what we, in some form or fashion, talk about. How we feel about it is the answer. Mm-hmm. And when it feels helpless, I mean, it can come in a million different ways. Mm-hmm. Left-sided brain stuff is where all of this is taking place. It becomes very dominant. If most people do brain scans, the activity in the left side of the brain is far higher than the right side of the brain. Mm-hmm. And it matters so much when you understand that, because that's where the law of attraction is picking up. It makes any sense? I mean, it's pretty serious. And so, I mean, I hope we're able to, whoever I'm working with, most people who become wildly successful that I know, and I would like to say all people, but I don't have time to think about it. Most people that I know have coming so wildly successful almost always had some incredibly catastrophic event that precipitated the change. Mm-hmm. You know, I know a lot of people, they go to work for one of our big hiring companies here is Dominion Power. It's a big power company. They get out of high school or college, they go to work for Dominion Power. They put in 25 years, they retire with an eye. That's wonderful. It's great. They live a nice life. But the people that are cranking it out and really doing it had train wrecks in their 30s. You know, they were horrible events. All these things happened, lost multiple jobs. They became entrepreneurs. You know, it just depends which, you know, one path. I mean, I really can't overstate how you choose to feel about, or the excitement about what's coming up for Bob or Sue here, is based on, yes, I hope I wish I could get Bob to see this differently. However, Sue's got to focus on how she's feeling about all this. And then that's how she can best help Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Which is ironic, because probably at some level Sue already knows that, but she still gets caught up in, well, I got to help Bob. I got to help him directly, physically. That's where I go to the help. When in fact, the best help she can give him is energetic and emotional. and working on herself to get herself into a better vibrational place. Compared to what we're used to in our day-to-day lives, that's very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Because we really grow up and live in a world where we are taught in so many different ways, not directly, just through the experience of living here. We are taught if you have a problem, you have to deal with the problem physically. You have to deal with it in the physical, real world. You can't bury your head in the sand. You
Sure
can't.
I do it every day.
You do it every day. Are you an expert head barrier? Is that what you are?
I mean, I try not to be, but yes, I will cancel a day if I need to. Like straight up.
That's not a bad policy, actually.
Yeah, no, it's like, okay, you know what? Today's not working out. All right, I'm canceling it. I'm going back to bed. I'll start over tomorrow.
Now, there are going to be a lot of people who will say, you can't do, you have responsibilities. You can't just... You just can't do that.
You can put things on pause for a second. And there was a pause button in life for a reason. So
in other words, there's an easy button with staples and there's a pause button. So now we know we have 2 buttons. That's good.
At least 2 buttons.
At least
2 buttons.
Joel, I got to ask you, how many clients have trouble putting life on pause? That sounds like it's very much outside of the norm.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know metaphorically it sounds good, but again, in reality, I mean, life's happening, and the problem of how we it's happening real fast during the day, and it's going on, and being able to take a breath, and it's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. But it becomes it becomes something that it's sort of that it's what we're teaching. It's what we're after. One of the there's a couple of things that I'm always doing books and different things. And I'm like every week I have, this is the best book ever. And I'm always saying to do this, but
you have your own book club. It's fantastic.
I do. And so I have. There's a book right now that I'm really into. It's called Atomic Habits, and it's really a good book that it's breaking down how to change habits. And it's not atomic in the sense of nuclear bomb. It's just at the most microscopic level.
Right.
Little teeny changes of daily make massive changes, like compounding interest on money. It does that, and so and the only reason that I think that's so important is when we as people who are learning to sort of go through the day and put it on pause or learning how to not do it. I mean, you need a set of tools that how do I get there? What is this? Because the life's happening and your responses are conditioned. And again, they go to the left side of the brain. How do you stop in the middle of that and go, excuse me, right side, I need you to take over. It just doesn't work that way.
Be nice if it did, though.
You could just tap on your right temple and be like, "Hello, is this thing on?"
Well, and but you might laugh. That might be a great strategy. And so what I like about it, one of the things I've gotten into is one of my books recently. It talks about sort of I do it. When I wake up in the morning, one of the first things, probably the first or second thing I do is I do a 15-minute mantra meditation. It's real easy. You can't do it wrong. And then in the middle of the afternoon, or usually about 2, I can do it in my office. I can do it in my car, not while driving, but with the car turned parked. I do another one, and it's these resets. If I need to do a third one, I can. And it's become an amazing tool for me, and it's helped on so many levels, but you have to be able to get to a point. I mean, you can't go from DEFCON, again, 1 or 4, know which one's the good or bad one. You can't go from the DEFCON 1. You can't go from DEFCON 1, and all of a sudden say, let me go meditate. It just doesn't, but you can learn to get there, but everything else is sort of a slowing of it. And then once you sort of master it, it becomes a lot easier. But what we're talking about is work, and it's always broken down into what is in your control versus what's not in your control, period. Nothing else.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's the biggest deal of it all.
Yeah, it really is. So good thoughts there. We also had the topic Alex want to bring in. Before I do that, I want to make sure I get our promotional messages done. So let's get to those first. If you can tell that it's always the same thing every day, that it's always different. Every day is different. It's the same thing. All the topics are different and the approaches are different, and yet they're all about the law of attraction. So you really want to make sure you get every single episode. And in order to do that, you have to become a subscriber. So go visit our website, loatoday.net. And at the top of the page, you will find instructions on how to become a subscriber if you're not already a subscriber. By the way, about 85% of our listeners are subscribers, and we love them. But we're trying to get the other 15% too, because we like 100%. So we're going for a 100% subscription rate. So go there, become a subscriber, and then once you've subscribed, share the fact that you subscribe with people that you know who might be interested, so that they can get their daily doses of happy as well, because that's how we get more and more people into the happy vortex zone that we all like to be in. And by the way, you can also watch us as we record these podcast episodes, because while we record, we live stream them to YouTube. And that's where I bring in my YouTube expert, Alex, to explain how subscriptions and notifications work on YouTube.
Well, you go to YouTube and you search LOA Today podcast videos. And once you've done that, you will hit the subscribe button. And next to the subscribe button, there's a little bell, and you hit that bell and click on always. So you will always be notified when we are live.
And you'll also get notifications whenever we put out like the next episode of The Grass is Greener, which Joel, I don't know if you heard, but we launched that last Friday, the first episode. And Alex,
cool.
I can tell you too. I talked to Cindy about it yesterday. Cindy was in the live stream audience. She was listening to it. Now, Cindy, like Joel, is a life coach. She knows law of attraction inside and out. We shocked her with the ending.
Yay!
She was so surprised by the ending, and she said, "I shouldn't have been. I should know better." But we got
everything was just going along swimmingly, and then boom, plot twist. I live for plot twists.
And it was a good plot twist. I got to tell you, Joel, we really played up a law of attraction theme in the first episode, which is actually laying the groundwork for what happens in the rest of the series. But we didn't talk about law of attraction. We didn't even use the phrase law of attraction.
Nope.
We used attraction. We used that word, being attracted, but that was about it. But we displayed it. We showed it and showed how it played out in one person's life, or actually the life of a group of people. And it even as you're writing it, and even as you're listening to the episode play out, I mean, on the one hand, you're saying, wow, that sounds so familiar. That sounds like, yeah, that's what the way life actually goes. And on the other hand, there's a little piece of your brain saying, wait a minute, there's something going on here. There's a pattern here. I recognize the pattern. So yeah, Joel, I'll have to recommend to you to hear that first episode so you can stay on top of it with us. But that's how you find out, folks, about what's happening. Yeah, I'll send you a link to it so you can actually hear what it sounds like.
Yeah, be good. Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. But that's how you get notified about when the next episodes come out. So make sure that you're staying tuned to LOA Today, because we always let you know when the next episode of The Grass is Greener comes out.
Facts.
So we've talked a bit about what it's like dealing with someone you're really close to who's going through something tough. That's a big issue, and I think we've come at it pretty well. We've basically come to the conclusion, rightly, I believe, that you can't do anything about the other person. You can only do about yourself. You can only decide how to handle what's in your control, which is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're dealing with somebody who's really hurting and there's somebody you care about. But that's where you have to go. But that, of course, is not the only possible issue. There are millions of issues that we deal with. You had another one in mind. What were you bringing to the table today?
Today, I was bringing to the table, because I was watching Catfish this morning, that, there are certain people that are going through life and unintentionally are catfishing other people.
And you have to define the term for us older folks, what catfishing is.
Let me break it down. So a catfish is someone who intentionally portrays themselves as another person, or just not who they really are, and online, obviously, to attract a relationship of some sort. Yes, so that's what a catfish does. But in another sense, like people who, and I've gone through this in life, they wear a mask, like, to deflect from how they're really feeling, and I feel like that's catfishing the real people in your life.
Sure.
It's because it's like you're not showing your true feelings, you're not showing what's really going on, and that you can't get help that way. So my question is are you the catfish in your life?
Ooh. And Joel, I have to ask you, have you run into the term catfishing before? Because Alex had to explain it to me the first time she used it with me. I had never heard it before.
I've actually heard it, never really quite understood it or looked into it. But yes, I've heard it before, but I didn't really know much about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that we have at least a definition in place, what do you do with that situation as the coach?
Well, I mean, my initial is probably anticlimactic, to be honest with you. Find another person. I mean, get rid of, when there's a term that's related or similar to that in the clinical terms called gaslighting, where it's related to that same thing. That if somebody who's catfishing has some type of personality issue or disorder going on, where they're trying to present an image or something to attract, and so when you but in a different way, like you're saying, are we our own cat? Do we? I believe our attitude, that internal dialogue of who we are, is a little different subject than that, which I think is what you're asking, if I'm getting it. Which I do believe we have when we're children, we have a little we have this little teeny brain. It's loaded. It's being loaded with information, just like a computer, with our surroundings, with our parents, our TV shows we watch, the environment, the political, again, growing up in inner city Baltimore has a different programming than growing up in, the Upper East Side in New York City, or a rural town in Alabama. One of the things that I think, you look at, and now I'm going to go out there a little bit, but I'll come right back, you'll see it like politically, that from a life coaching sort of social science standpoint, it would be impossible to expect someone who grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, in a very Southern Baptist white culture to have any understanding whatsoever of someone who grew up in a different culture. Now, you hope we could ever get to a point of accepting there's a different view because of different environment. And that's the answer to our solution. That's the solution to our problem with our country. If we can ever just quit fighting over all this stuff and just accept there's just multiple views, and let's go that way, that's awesome. But we have a hard time doing that. Now, much the same way, when are we our own catfishing type mindset to ourselves, we develop a personality, again, with our programming and our environment, and there's what we want to be, and it's based on fears, anxieties, hopes, dreams. There's a million different things going on. But to be the person that we are we true to ourselves? Are we true to who we want to be? One of the things that happens a lot of times to teenagers in particular is they don't know who they want to be. So they're performing to an audience. They're performing, well, I wear this shirt because this guy thinks it's cool. My hair's long or short, either because because everybody else is going the other way. There's a lot, or I want to be like everybody else, or I want to be the opposite of everybody else. One of my funny things I've done several times is I wish I'd have videotaped a few of these, but like if I see some really goth kid sitting on the bench somewhere, like at a mall or something, I'll literally go sit right by them and point out in a very kind, laughingly way that I find it ironic that your rebellion against society is to dress like everybody else who's rebelling against society. So ironically, yeah. So ironically, your statement of "I'm not a conformist" is conforming to the image of a nonconformist. I love that. Of course, they look at me like, who are you and why are you sitting by me?
Yes. I'd be like stranger danger.
yeah. And I just can't believe it. But just to see the reaction is like, this makes, what's happening. But
you should definitely have somebody videotape that.
Yeah. But when you process all that, when you understand where that comes from, is we're in this cycle of are we true to ourselves? Are we sabotaging ourselves? Who are we? I mean, that sounds like a big existential question there. Who are we? But you don't know. I remember early when things were coming back, and things had gotten out of hand in my life and in my addiction. And I was early in my recovery. People say, "What kind of music do you like?" Or what do you? And I'm like, I liked what everybody else liked. I liked what the norm was, and I have a very weird taste in music, and it's just a bunch of different kind of music, and so me to be comfortable in around people that didn't like that kind of music or whatever, and then when I've sort of become comfortable myself, I could then be true to myself and not allow myself to just sort of be whatever the committee said I needed to be. And so that's a big thing in life is sort of that awakening. A lot of people would call that sort of transcendence in life, when you can get to a place where you're true to yourself and sort of celebrate your differences instead of focusing on trying to, when you can be really authentic, then you're not at that place. But that catfishing concept to ourselves is more of you're playing a role that you think you want to be versus your true authentic self. And it just, and that's a big difference. And so it's when you can be congruent with who you are versus the image of who you think you should be. And once you can sort of reconcile those two, that's when life gets a hell of a lot easier.
There's also a fine line there, and I'm realizing it as you're describing what you were just describing very well, I might add. And that is, we can take on a face, so to speak. We can take on a personality. We can take on somebody that isn't who we currently are for one of two reasons. One, we can do it because we're resisting, we're fighting, we want to move away from, we're trying to say, oh no, I don't want to be what everybody else is or whatever.
Yeah.
But the other reason is, this is who I want to become. That's the other possibility. That was played out very recently in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, where Freddie Mercury was basically told by his father, you are trying to be somebody who you aren't. And that is always going to work out to your detriment. Well, he turned himself into somebody who he wasn't, and that person became immensely successful.
Right.
So it's a really fine line. When is it going too far?
Well, but that's part of the process. I mean, I do think that I've shared many times about my spiritual struggles years ago when I was young. I knew there was something. I knew there was a path. I knew there was something. I could never find it. It took me a long time to find it. But I do believe there's an authentic self that we're trying to get to. But I think we are, again, programmed a certain way. When I went to work for my father in the insurance business many, many years ago, and, me and my crazy ADD brain sitting behind a desk 40 hours a week is not intended for my brain. However, I tried to play that role because it was an expected role of me. And I was absolutely horrible at it. It turned out to be a disaster, or that's one view of it. Or, I mean, I think we can all not argue it was a disaster, but we can get to the other side and say it was a necessary disaster because it eventually got me to where I needed to be through a very convoluted chain of events. So the idea that I do think we're striving to be, but I think it really works when you're striving to be who you really are. That and getting in tune with that is when it is working. And when you're trying to be something that you're not, it's when it feels different. There's Carl Jung had a lot of, he's a psychiatrist a long time ago. And he believed that we operate in, what we're intended to be or what our fate is or what our skill set is or, what our mission is, whatever term you want, or our destiny. And when you're not fulfilling your destiny, the difference between the two is where it feels like depression and anxiety is you're not living your authentic self. And when you're living your authentic self, you don't live with depression and anxiety and fear because you're living and you don't give a damn about what anybody thinks about you or what that image is. Everything's going to be fine. But getting to that authentic self, sometimes we, look at the 80s hairstyles. When I see some of my friends wear it's like, what the hell were y'all? My annual, my school annual. Oh my gosh, what those hairstyles! They were all this. I don't know what they were trying to do. I mean, wow. But they're all the same, and so they're trying. Was that their authentic self? Or last year I was Justin, my son was in 5th grade last year. About this time of year, well, it was right before the school year ended last year, and we went on a field trip where the 5th grade went to the new middle school to see where they're going. And I was a chaperone, which is, just wacky in general anyway. Yeah. And I lost the entire 5th grade. I lost the whole 5th grade.
That tracks.
Yeah. There was another school 5th grade there that I had somehow commandeered, and I am leading the wrong 5th grade. And
wait, you didn't notice your son wasn't there?
No, because they all look the same. They all had the same haircut. They all wore the same clothes. And I realized, oh my God, wait a minute, I lost the 5th grade. And now, fortunately, the way they had it set up, they made it to where they were going. And then I did point out to them as we got on the bus, I said, just a reminder, kids, at no time were you lost. And now they never knew they were lost,
right?
But they were lost, and the poor that I feel sorry for the 5th grade I was leading because they're just following this man that says follow me, and they're thinking. So the teacher came up and said, Are you one of my parents? I'm like, nope, I got the wrong 5th grade. So, so within that spectrum, but my which is one of my favorite stories. But one of the things the underlying thing of it, my son's 5th grade class, sincerely, they all look the same. They have the same haircut. They wore the same Hollister type shirts and Nike pants, and you know what I'm saying. And so it's like this. They do. I mean, they're because in 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade, the main issue is to be like everybody else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's when
it reminds me of the Far Side cartoon. Do you remember the old Far Side cartoon of
the best of all time?
Oh, wonderful cartoon. But this particular one was a field of sheep. And sheep look pretty much alike, right? And there's one sheep standing up on his hind legs saying, I gotta be me. It just illustrates that voice beautifully.
Oh my God.
Well, you see it in political stuff where everybody, because my party believes this, then we're all doing that. Let's all behave that way or all have the same narrative. You see it in, social circles, who drives the same car, and it's just, you see this a lot, but there's this incongruence of the authentic self and who we really, who we want to be, who's the image that we want to be, and what we think we need to perform. And so we catfish ourselves often by portraying or thinking we need to be anything but our authentic self. Mm-hmm. And when you get there, and that's why we're all different. We all have a skill set that's different.
Yeah.
I was having lunch one day with one of my clients who is a professional athlete, and he is 6'9" and 290 pounds.
Hey.
Wow.
Massive man, very athletic, very nice guy. And, I'm I feel like a little teeny baby standing next to him. And, but at the same time, he's coming to me for advice. He's coming to me. So you see the skill set there. I'm not going to be mistaken for an NBA player. But yet he values our time together enough to fly into Richmond to spend a day with me and pay a lot of money to do that because I have a different skill set than he has, and my skill set support his skill set. He's on the back end of his career, and he was about ready to call it quits last year, and we started working together, and he's able to change his perspective and becoming exceptionally proficient and back on and signed a new big contract and doing great.
Good for him. That's fabulous.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice when you hear a story like that, because it just goes to prove no matter what your circumstance, even if your circumstances are seemingly good, you can go through stuff that's really rough for you, and you can come out the other side. And that's reassuring. Yeah. That's a very, very good thing. I had another thought that I wanted to follow up on, and I'm trying to reel it in as I'm talking to you. Still there. I know it's out there. It's got a catfish on it. But
oh, the dad jokes.
Yeah, well, you can't live without dad jokes.
No, you can't. Can't.
No, but what I'm trying to get to is the idea that when we are in the midst of this stuff, I find it useful. This is me speaking. This is not necessarily going to be for everybody, but I think it's really useful to look at what Abraham Hicks talks about. This is what I really love about what Abraham teaches. They teach us when we were just talking about how you can have a person who is trying to be somebody that they're not currently. They can do it either for the right reasons because it feels good to go in that direction, because it feels like, yes, that's where I need to be. That's my true authentic self. That's where I am right there. Or it can be somebody who's actually trying to get away from their authentic self. Abraham says, all you're really doing is you're deciding between what it is that you like and what it is that you don't like, between what it is that you prefer and what you don't prefer. And I think, wow, that just clarifies it in one phrase so much better than anybody I've ever heard. I just think it's a wonderful way to understand it. So, my reaction is, if I'm dealing with a catfish, is, well, do I like it or don't I?
Well, that's what I said in the very beginning. And whether it's someone else doing it or doing it, at some point, just what do you like? What do you? I don't do a lot of drama anymore. I don't do any drama. And if somebody tries to bring drama into my environment, I just no, it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. I don't allow that. I have a relative the other day that has some minor criminal charge or something, and he's been arrested, and his what my other cousin calls and says, can you bail him out? And I go, yeah, first of all, I'm the last person to call for that. That's not,
no kidding.
And I said, well, you mean when he got in the car after having 10 beers and decided to drive, and now he's in jail for DUI, he wants me to somehow. And I said, no. I said, what's going to really reinforce this is, it's like, but he'll be hurt in prison. I said, no, it's not. It's jail. It's North Carolina jail.
He's just going to sit there and be bored. He's not going to get hurt.
Bored to death, and he won't be able to see his girlfriend and all this. So all of this is going on, but at the same time, she tried to draw me into the drama of all this.
Right.
And I just blocked her number. She said, well, we're family. And I go, no, not really. I mean, we're not really. You're like a third cousin or something, and so, but the point is, I'm not doing the drama. But her main goal is to, I just don't know how he's going to survive. I go, he's going to survive like the other 1,900 people in that jail. He's going to survive like everybody else. He's going to be fine. But it's the drama piece and all it's what you like and what you don't like. Some people love that drama. Some people love to be in all that. It gives them their life some, appearance of I guess maybe meaning. I guess I don't know. But it doesn't really. You know what I mean? It doesn't really.
I agree.
And it's just sort of like, it's a distraction from other stuff. But at the end of the day, so focusing on where we're at is such an amazing, right now, authentic me, what I like, live with what you like. And have the first step, Walt, is, and I think we've heard this over the years, you'll be surprised that people they have a lot of things they don't like, but they don't know exactly what they do like.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so learning to really, it's one thing to say, well, do what you like. Well, if you don't know what you like, then we got a problem.
Yeah.
You got to figure out, what do you like? What do you really want? I don't tell me what you don't want. Tell me what you do. Like when I ask somebody with the relationship thing, when they come in, so what do you want? Well, I'll tell you what I don't want. I'm going to go, okay, well, clearly that's working because you keep tracking that every day.
Clearly that's working.
Clearly that's working because we know the law of attraction is working for you. So now how do we rearrange it? Tell me what you do want. And you won't be shocked, but it's really shocking to me sometimes that people don't really have any idea what they want. They know what they don't want, but that's what they keep inviting.
It's a funny thing because, I'm sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, when I hear that, we talked about it on a different podcast, and it's like, it's amazing for those same people who will go to a restaurant, and when the waiter asks them, what do you want? They know what they want, but they don't go through the whole menu and go, okay, I don't want the broccoli. I don't want the truffle fries. And then they get to what they want. So if it can work for you in that way, why can't you apply that to real life?
And the answer is they can. The thing is, and I think this is really the crux of it, we get in a habitual pattern of looking at what it is that we don't like.
Right.
And when we're so good at that, because we've been in a habitual pattern, that's when all of a sudden we find that it's a big shift to say, well, what do I like? I don't know. I've been stuck in what I don't like for so long. I can't remember what I like anymore. So I'm going to go back to what I don't like because I know that really well.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly the thing that, it's really easy. It seems very easy, but again, the left side of the brain where all this is anxiety stuff is driven, it's spending all of its day out of, okay, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. It's just rehearsing what it doesn't want to happen by what it has perceived or labeled as historical information that is bad. Oh, I don't want this to happen. And so you live a fear-based. I know my mom, who passed away a couple of years ago. So I'm not talking negatively about her, but she had her entire life. Money was her big thing. She just had the hardest time with money, and she lived with a lack of money for so long that even though my dad, who did very well, it's almost like she eventually, just sort of took over her manifesting the lack eventually won over on the abundance. And it was very odd to see happen, but it happens. You see that. So again, we all live within this, and we all have this ability. Well, we develop the ability. Again, it's the same concept. What do you want versus what you don't want? That's everything with the law of attraction. What's in your control, what's not in your control, what do you want versus living everything based on what you don't want, because what you don't want is the field you're putting out to the law of attraction.
And by the way, once we understand that it is important to focus on what we want rather, and we find that we're having trouble getting there, that's a great signal that it's time to stop spending so much time on the stuff we don't want and just spend some time just sitting with, I wonder what it is I really do want. Just the fact that you can't get there tells you that's where you need to get to.
And that's when I think you need to play the what if game with yourself.
I've been playing an interesting variation on that game lately. I've changed it to, I like feeling fill in the blank.
Okay. I like it.
So like when I take my daily walks, I'll be out there, just recharging my batteries, so to speak.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I'll do that is I like feeling the way I feel when I look at a blue sky. I like feeling the way I feel when I look at the green trees. I like feeling the way I feel when Louise and I go out for a walk together. I like feeling the way I feel when I get the new job that I'm looking for. I like the way I feel when the money comes in. I like the way I feel when my relationship improves. I like the way I feel. You just keep doing it.
Yeah.
You turn it into a rampage. When you turn into, it's a very powerful thing to turn into a rampage, doing something like that.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good.
I like it. Good idea.
Yeah, I'm still practicing. I'm still working with it, but I'm realizing it's a very powerful combination. Abraham talks about it in terms of wouldn't it be nice if, which is good. I kind of like this one better because it's reminding me, what do I like? Oh, yeah, I like this. Why do I like it? What feels good about it? Oh, I like it because it feels X, whatever X is. It's a really strong reminder to say, this is what I want to reprogram my subconscious mind to start playing back to me instead of all that other tripe it's been playing all these years. So, yeah. Well, good stuff, guys. Really good. We only have about a minute left, so we got to close things up. First, Joel, I got to ask you, tell people, how do they reach Joel Elston, the life coach, if somebody needs to reach out to you?
JoelElston@gmail.com works, and I always love having feedback from our listeners.
All right. And then, Alex, I also got to ask you, you are the expert on TV and movie spoilers. Any spoilers that we need to know about?
I don't have any spoilers. I was just notified that the Miss America pageant is moving to Connecticut this year.
Oh, God, we're in trouble now.
Have fun with the traffic, Walt.
do you happen to know what part of Connecticut so I can move to the other part?
It starts with a U, I believe.
Unionville?
No,
Uncas.
It's like a real complicated name.
Oh, like Uncasville, like I'm not sure what it is. Well, I'll look up all the U's and I'll move away from all of them. That'll make it real safe.
Sounds like a plan.
Is there still a Miss America pageant? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Miss Universe, Miss America, Miss Massachusetts, Miss all of them.
Wow.
There's just no bathing suit judgment. They still wear bathing suits, but there's no. You don't get points for that.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. No judgment there. No judgment. Oh.
And the reason, by the way, it's still Miss America.
But we're not going to judge that. We're not going to judge it. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
God.
It's like a little mini. What do you call it? Not intervention. What do you call it when it's in between the intermission? Intermission. So they have them walk around in their bathing suits during the intermission, but we still get to see it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to stick to my plan and move to another part of Connecticut. That's the best practice I can think of.
Or just come down to the Cape that weekend.
I'll come to the Cape. That's what it is. As long as you don't have any tornadoes going on, that's all I ask.
I don't know anymore. I mean, I would have said no, never. But as of 2 days ago, we had
would you believe, Joel?
We had two in 24 hours.
The Cape is now Tornado Alley. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, yeah, I saw that actually. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. No, it was not fun.
Well, fortunately, it's a rare event. It's not coming back again anytime soon. So you've had your tornado for the next 25 years. You're okay.
I'm good.
And with that happy thought, we will leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.